I've brought my Lego Viking ship down to the Norwegian fjords.
Let's sail back in time together.
The year is 793 AD. The northeast coast of Britain has been plagued by storms throughout the year, foreshadowing a great evil to come. And on the 8th of June, a storm brought with it a boat of heathens from the north that lay waste to the holy isle of Lindisfarne, plundering its gold and treasures and killing the monks that lived there. This would be the first of many years of small, uncoordinated coastal raids on Britain, Ireland, and other parts of Western Europe. The Viking Age had begun. Let's pause there and ask, who were the Vikings? The Vikings came from Scandinavia, which is made up of modern-day Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. The Vikings did not actually wear horned helmets, but we're going to use them anyway because they're awesome. They also had their own gods and mythology. Odin, the Allfather, was at the centre of it all, and Valhalla was their equivalent of heaven. Fact and myth are hard to decipher within this period, as the Vikings didn't really have a written language at the time, and other European sources paint different pictures to the Viking legends that sing songs of their heroes. And now let's get back to the epic story. The Vikings preferred to carry out their raids in the summer months due to safer conditions crossing the North Sea. Some English kings would pay them money to leave peacefully, and this became known as the Dane Gold. Popularised by tales throughout the centuries, it is believed that a Danish Viking by the name of Ragnar Lothbrok was one of the first important figures in this saga. Legends say that King Aelle of Northumbria captured Ragnar and dropped him into a pit of snakes to punish him for his crimes, where he supposedly said in his dying breath, "How the little piglets would grunt if they knew how the old boar suffered." Believed to be led by the Ragnarsons, a coalition of some 3,000 Scandinavian warriors land on the Isle of Thanet in Kent. Whether they were truly there to avenge their father's death, or just to plunder Britain's riches, is debated by historians, but fact remains that they did an ungodly amount of plundering. By 866, the heathen army had travelled north and established Jorvik, which is modern-day York. The original walls of this city were erected by the Romans in 71 AD, and then refortified when the Vikings took over. Shortly after this, in 871, Alfred the Great was crowned King of Wessex, and he was able to halt the Danes from their English conquest. Meanwhile, over in Norway, in 872, they had also crowned their first king, King Harald Finehair. Until this point, the Vikings were led by Jarls, who were subjects to kings of much smaller portions of land, and King Harald was the first to unite Norway as a whole. A little over a decade later, in 886, King Alfred agrees to the Danelaw with the Viking army that had remained in England. This gave the Vikings a large portion of England to call home. In 899, King Alfred the Great passed away after having successfully held off the Viking threat to Wessex, and he would be succeeded by his son Edward the Elder. Early in the 10th century, a Viking named Rollo left Norway to raid Europe with a small army. He attempted to take Paris but was fought off, and later in 911 he negotiated with the Frankish king to claim ownership of land in the north of France, which later became Normandy. In return for the land, he renounced his pagan gods and was baptised, but it is said that he never took this seriously. Rollo's lineage will play an important part in the story later. Throughout the 10th century, the 5 Viking boroughs within the Danelaw had become disenfranchised from one another after failing to elect a king like York, allowing Wessex to begin its campaign to unify England and remove the Vikings. Edward the Elder died in 924, having secured Mercia to the north. His successor, Athelstan, sought to secure his northern border by wedding his sister to the Viking ruler of York, Sihtric. Sihtric died in 927, and Athelstan took this opportunity to drive out his successor Olaf and claim York for Wessex. Athelstan then looked north and invaded Scotland in 934, which obviously upset King Constantine of Scotland, who went on to create an alliance with all who feared the expansionism of Wessex, Vikings included. In 937, this alliance invaded England and failed spectacularly, resulting in Athelstan declaring himself ruler of Britain. Unfortunately, Athelstan died 2 years later and was succeeded by his brother Edmund, who quickly lost many of the gains made by Athelstan as Olaf reclaimed York. Edmund recovered most of this land by 942, but one more threat from the Vikings would emerge in 947 when Eric Bloodaxe, son of King Harald Finehair, would be declared King of York. Edred succeeded his brother as King of Wessex in 946, and he led a campaign on Northumbria. Seeing that hope was lost, the citizens of York expelled Eric, and he was murdered while he fled. In 954, England was unified and the threat of the Vikings on English shores seemed to be over. Towards the end of the 10th century, Viking raids on England are re-emerging, and in 991, King Athelred the Unready was defeated at the Battle of Malden and paid the Danegold as tribute to the Danish king. Olaf I conquers Norway in 995, turning it Christian. Roughly in the year 1000, Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, travels further west and discovers Newfoundland. At the same time, King Olaf dies and Danes take over Norway. In the year 1002, Athelred orders the massacre of Danish settlers. In 1010, the Vikings return to the coast of North America and attempt to create a settlement. The year 1013, and the Danes seek an answer for the massacre in 1002 and invade and conquer England. King Athelred flees to Normandy. Approximately 1015, the Vikings flee their settlement in North America. And in 1016, Olaf II regains Norway and brings Christianity back with him, while King Canute of Denmark becomes King of England. A little over a decade later, in 1028, and King Canute of Denmark and England conquers Norway once again. 1042, and the Danes install a puppet English king, Edward the Confessor. It's now 1066, and Harold Godwinson is King of England. He defeats Norwegian King Harald Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Harold Godwinson marches south after his victory to face William the Conqueror of Normandy, a descendant of Rollo the Viking. He's defeated by William, who becomes King of England, and the Viking Age comes to an end. Thank you for watching and helping me hit 1,000 subscribers last week. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments which other eras you would like to see me build out of Lego.